According to research from behavioral economists, cognitive biases cost the average American between $1,400 and $4,600 annually in poor financial decisions. That's potentially $184,000 over a 40-year working life, enough to fund several years of retirement. These mental blind spots affect your investment returns and impact every financial decision you make, from how you shop to how you save. Imagine how much of your hard-earned money is slipping away because of these invisible patterns in your thinking. In today's video, I'll reveal the 6 most financially devastating biases and equip you with practical strategies to protect your wealth immediately. Ready to stop these costly mental errors? The hidden cost of confirming what you already believe. Have you ever noticed how easy it is to find information that supports your financial hunches? That's not a coincidence. When you're researching that new tech stock or luxury purchase, your brain is quietly steering you toward information that makes you feel good about decisions you've already made or want to make. This is confirmation bias, our natural tendency to seek out information that validates our existing beliefs while conveniently filtering out anything that challenges them. Think about the last time you researched a product you really wanted. Did you find yourself scrolling past negative reviews while nodding along with the positive ones? We do this with financial advisors too, gravitating toward experts who reinforce our existing investment strategies rather than those who might point out flaws. What makes this bias particularly dangerous is how it creates financial echo chambers. If you believe cryptocurrency is the future, you'll likely join online communities and follow influencers who share that belief. Your social media feeds become like a funhouse mirror, reflecting back only the perspectives that match your own, distorting your view of financial reality. The psychological reward is powerful. When we encounter information that confirms our beliefs, our brains release dopamine, the same chemical responsible for the pleasure we feel when eating chocolate or receiving praise. We're essentially getting high on validation, making contradictory information feel like an unpleasant withdrawal. This bias appears in countless financial decisions, from brand loyalty despite rising prices to ignoring concerning news about investments while focusing on optimistic outlooks. The consequences can be severe: poor portfolio diversification or holding failing investments too long. Real-world examples best illustrate how this bias operates. Consider Michelle, a 32-year-old who invested heavily in a trendy meal delivery startup. She joined enthusiastic investor forums and followed the founder's charismatic social media. When supply chain issues and customer complaints emerged, she dismissed them as growing pains, focusing instead on impressive user growth figures. By bankruptcy time, she had lost over $12,000 money that could have been protected had she considered contradictory information. The solution is counterintuitive. Actively seek out information that contradicts what you want to believe. For every exciting investment, research why it might fail. For every seemingly worthwhile purchase, calculate what else that money could do for you. Create a systematic review process that forces you to confront contradictory evidence before making financial decisions. Why fearing loss makes you lose more? What if I told you that your brain's natural tendency to protect yourself is actually sabotaging your financial future? This isn't just speculation. Neuroscience shows that your fear response to potential money loss triggers a dramatically different reaction than potential gains. And this imbalance might be the single biggest reason your investments aren't growing as they should. Loss aversion is deeply hardwired into our psychology. Studies consistently show that the emotional pain of losing money feels approximately twice as powerful as the pleasure of gaining the same amount. This reflects a fundamental aspect of how our brains process risk and reward. Consider a real scenario many investors face: holding on to a plummeting stock far too long, hoping it will just get back to break even. Sound familiar? This behavior makes no mathematical sense, yet we do it constantly. Or imagine a coin flip where heads means you win $1,000 and tails means you lose $500. Mathematically, this bet offers positive expected value. Yet most people refuse this wager. That's loss aversion at work. This protective mechanism served our ancestors well when resources were scarce. In today's financial markets, however, it leads to consistently poor decisions. We sell winning investments prematurely to lock in gains. We keep excessive cash rather than investing for retirement. A landmark study by Kahneman and Tversky found that investors consistently prioritize avoiding losses over maximizing gains, even when those choices lead to worse outcomes mathematically. Recent data shows the average investor underperforms the market by nearly 2% annually, primarily due to these behaviors. When facing potential financial loss, your amygdala, your brain's alarm system, activates strongly. Brain imaging shows significantly more neural activity during loss scenarios than equivalent gain scenarios. Your brain literally processes these situations differently. This bias affects everyone, though research shows certain demographics respond more strongly. Studies reveal millennial women keep approximately 71% more assets in cash than their male counterparts, potentially sacrificing over $100,000 in retirement funds by age 65. Your brain is working against your financial future, but you can fight back. Start by implementing predetermined investment rules before emotions take over. Decide exactly when you'll sell based on objective criteria, not feelings. Second, reframe investment losses as necessary components of any successful strategy. Even Warren Buffett has numerous losing investments. Finally, use automation. Set up regular investments that happen automatically, removing the emotional decision point entirely. Investors who check portfolios less frequently and use automated systems consistently achieve better returns. When the first number becomes your financial prison. Now that we've tackled our fear of losses, let's examine an even more invisible mental trap. The first number you see when making a financial decision becomes a powerful anchor that weighs down your financial choices. And marketers are exploiting this weakness in ways you haven't realized. This mental trap is called anchoring bias, and it's your brain's tendency to give excessive importance to the first piece of information it encounters. Like a ship firmly moored to the seabed, your financial decisions become tethered to that initial number. When you see a stock priced at $100, that number becomes your reference point for all future decisions about that investment, even when market conditions change completely. What makes anchoring dangerous is how it creates artificial reference points disconnected from current reality. Why should the price you originally paid for a stock determine its value today? Research from the Journal of Behavioral Finance shows investors consistently refuse to sell stocks until they return to their purchase price, missing better opportunities elsewhere while their money remains trapped in declining investments. The same psychological weight affects everyday purchases. That rush of satisfaction buying something originally $200, now just $120. The original price anchors your perception of value, even when the item was never worth $200. MIT and University of Chicago researchers found that displaying a higher original price increased purchases by over 40%, even with completely artificial discounts. Even financial professionals aren't immune. 73% of professional money managers acknowledged in a 2021 CFA Institute survey that anchoring bias affected their investment decisions despite their advanced training. Consider this example. You buy shares at $100. 6 months later, it drops to $60 after missing earnings targets. Logically, you should evaluate whether that $60 would be better invested elsewhere. But anchoring bias keeps you fixated on that original $100 price tag, waiting for recovery instead of seeking growth. Retailers exploit this masterfully. Amazon shows crossed-out list prices. Black Friday doorbusters establish extreme anchors that make subsequent purchases seem reasonable. Limited-time offers create urgency, preventing better price comparison. To break free from artificial price anchors, first, evaluate investments on future potential, not past prices. Ask yourself, would I buy this today at its current price? Second, research prices across multiple sources. Finally, establish your own value-based anchors before seeing any prices. The money pit. You can't stop filling. Breaking free from price anchors requires looking forward, but what happens when your brain refuses to let go of the past? That broken appliance you've repaired 4 times, costing more than a replacement. It's the sunk cost fallacy, and it might be the biggest drain on your finances you've never identified. The sunk cost fallacy occurs when we continue investing in something based solely on what we've already spent, rather than evaluating its future value. It's why we keep pouring money into that 15-year-old car that breaks down every other month, or why we sit through terrible movies just because we paid for the ticket. Our brains hate admitting defeat. A 2018 psychological science study found that people continue investing in failing projects simply because they had already committed resources, even when presented with clear evidence that cutting losses was the better financial decision. This escalation of commitment manifests in those subscription services you barely use but keep paying for, or that online course you purchased but never completed. The psychology behind this runs deep. Dr. Daniel Kahneman explains that the sunk cost fallacy stems from our aversion to regret. We fear acknowledging a mistake more than the financial pain of continuing to invest in it. This protective mechanism shields our self-image but damages our financial health. Consider Alex, a 29-year-old graphic designer who inherited his grandparents' small house with its creaking floors and faded wallpaper. When the roof started leaking, he decided to renovate rather than sell. One repair led to another: new plumbing, electrical rewiring, kitchen overhaul, until he'd sunk $43,000 into the property valued at just $120,000. When inspectors discovered major foundation cracks that would cost another $60,000, Alex felt physically ill, but couldn't let go. "I've already put so much into this house," he whispered, staring at the mounting bills. By the time he finally sold 3 years later, he'd lost over $85,000. Reset your thinking with the blank slate technique. When facing a financial decision about something you've already invested in, ask yourself, if I was starting from scratch today, knowing what I know now, would I make this same investment? If the answer is no, it's time to walk away. Another powerful approach is opportunity cost framing. Instead of dwelling on what you've already spent, focus on what else you could do with additional money you're considering investing. How today's coffee steals your future wealth. That opportunity cost calculation works wonders for spending decisions, but there's an even more fundamental battle happening in your brain. 1. Between who you are today and who you'll be years from now. Neuroimaging studies show that when people think about their future selves, the brain activates significantly different neural pathways than when thinking about their present selves. In fact, researchers at Princeton found that contemplating your future self activates brain regions remarkably similar to when you think about a completely different person. This phenomenon, called present bias, explains why most people choose $100 today over $120 next month, despite the 20% return, far better than almost any investment. A 2011 study published in the Journal of Consumer Research found that when participants were shown age-progressed images of themselves before making financial decisions, their savings rates increased by an average of 30%. We literally need to meet our future selves to care about their well-being. Think of your present and future selves as two travelers sharing the same passport but with different priorities. Your present self is focused on the pleasures of today's journey, while your future self awaits the resources you're willing to send ahead. Present bias appears everywhere in our finances. That $5 daily coffee habit might seem harmless now, but calculate its true cost. $5 invested daily at 7% return becomes approximately $183,000 over 30 years. Similarly, those late-night Amazon purchases add up. The average American makes 156 impulse buys annually, totaling over $5,400. Each seemingly trivial expense compounds dramatically over time. 2019 Bankrate survey revealed that 44% of Americans couldn't cover a $1,000 emergency. The average household spends over $3,000 annually on restaurant meals. Present bias explains why credit card debt has reached record highs. Americans carry $7,951 in credit card debt at 24.59% interest. According to behavioral economist Dan Ariely, we experience temporal discounting, devaluing future rewards for immediate ones. Financial institutions exploit this bias masterfully. Buy now, pay later services have grown 300% annually since 2018. Subscription services mask their cumulative impact. Americans maintain an average of 12 monthly subscriptions. The more distant the future consequence, the more we discount it. This explains why retirement planning proves challenging. 2020 Federal Reserve report found that 25% of non-retired adults have no retirement savings. To bridge this gap, Stanford researcher Hal Hershfield suggests regularly engaging with vivid mental images of your future self. Write letters to your future self or use age progression apps to visualize yourself decades later, when headlines hijack your financial decisions. Automating your finances helps battle your present self, but your financial decisions face another powerful enemy: the headlines you consume this morning. What if I told you that news outlets are systematically programming your brain to make poor investment choices, not through conspiracy, but through a fundamental flaw in how our minds process information? This mental shortcut is called availability bias. Our tendency to give excessive weight to information that's easily recalled, especially if it's recent, dramatic, or emotionally charged. Imagine a flood of flashing headlines about crypto crashes or stock market surges bombarding your consciousness. These vivid examples become disproportionately influential in your decision-making. Think about the last financial move you made. Was it influenced by something you read that morning? A 2021 study from the Journal of Finance found that retail investors are 23% more likely to buy stocks featured prominently in the media, regardless of fundamentals or valuation. This creates a cycle where coverage drives investment, which creates dramatic price movements, generating more coverage. This explains why many investors buy at market peaks and sell during crashes. Harvard Business School found that non-professional investors consistently allocate more capital to investments after they've already experienced significant price increases, reducing returns by 4.3% annually, compared to a simple buy-and-hold strategy. The problem intensifies with algorithmic news feeds designed to show content that triggers emotional responses, and nothing triggers emotions quite like money. Negative financial news receives approximately 63% more engagement than positive news, creating availability cascades where perception of risk becomes dramatically distorted. Market corrections occur annually on average, but investors react to each one as if unprecedented. Meanwhile, most dramatically overestimate their chances of picking the next Amazon or Bitcoin, despite the statistical rarity of such successes. This bias affects smaller financial decisions too. People overestimate lottery odds or underestimate the need for emergency savings based on recently heard stories. Protect yourself by creating an investment policy statement, a documented set of rules that acts as a firewall between emotional reactions and your money. Practice information diversification by seeking contradictory sources and focusing on data rather than narratives. Most importantly, implement a mandatory waiting period before acting on market news. Even a 24-hour delay can reduce emotionally driven financial decisions by nearly 50%, allowing you to make choices based on strategy rather than headlines. So here we are. These 6 cognitive biases are actively draining your bank account. The average person loses thousands each year to these mental shortcuts without realizing it. But here's the good news. Recognizing these biases is half the battle. By implementing the counter strategies we've discussed, seeking contradictory viewpoints, focusing on future value, creating decision rules before emotions arise, you're already ahead of most people. These techniques function as a financial superpower that compounds over time. Thanks for watching. In my next video, I'll show you how to create a custom bias detection checklist for major financial decisions. Subscribe now to transform your financial future.